This is the true story of Louise Smith, a young woman that was entering the adult world, and that hadn't had the easiest start in life. In tough times, it can be hard to know who to trust, so when Louise left the house one day, but never came back, where would the police even begin to look? What had become of Louise? Viewer discretion is advised for this educational documentary. Welcome back to CASE Documentaries. I bring you true crime, disturbing stories and other things that you may later regret knowing with regular uploads every week. Please do join the quickly growing, incredibly supportive CASE family by hitting subscribe now and turning on notifications. Remember, choosing to be kind can save a life in many ways. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me. Our love and respect goes out to those that knew and loved Louise and all those affected by this case. Louise Smith was pretty much like any other 16-year-old girl. She loved animals and being outdoors. She was studying to become a veterinarian. She was a smiley, bubbly person who loved her family, but she also had her struggles. Louise was battling with depression and anxiety. Social workers had monitored Louise for some time, and they had put her on a child in need plan. This was due to the constant risk of domestic maltreatment and neglect. She was bubbly, but she was also impressionable and vulnerable. She often had arguments with her mother over her desire for more independence. After falling out with her mother, she had been living with her cousin, also known as CJ, and her husband Shane in the Lee Park area of Havant. They were younger than her mum, both 29 years old, but they were old enough to be responsible for her, and initially it was a good fit. She called them her aunt and uncle, and they got on well. For a 16-year-old that desperately wanted independence, this might just be the perfect solution. But unfortunately, the perfect solution didn't stay perfect for long. On May the 7th, 2020, Louise had had enough. The United Kingdom was under lockdown due to the pandemic, so Louise was unable to live the independent lifestyle that she so desired. She texted her friends saying that she needed to leave her aunt and uncle's home. She described the couple as vile and explained that they treated her like a child. She also alleged that Shane had acted inappropriately. She felt he was attempting to flirt with her on several occasions. This made her uncomfortable and she didn't know how to handle him. She recorded Shane on her mobile phone as evidence to send to her friends. In the video, he can be seen tickling her feet. So enough was enough, and Louise decided yet again to leave her home. Still not on talking terms with her mum, she turned to a friend, Samantha Bird. She explained the situation to Samantha. She then offered Louise a place to stay, and even said that she would allow her boyfriend Bradley to live with her too. This proposition seemed appealing to both Louise and Bradley, and it was almost a done deal. When CJ learned of this, she reached out to Louise to make amends. She was incredibly persistent. CJ attempted to make contact with Louise over 50 times and eventually she gave in. Louise, CJ and Shane managed to talk it through. They resolved the situation and Louise decided to stay. With everything sorted, they decided to celebrate with a drink. Louise and Shane went to the local shops. Shane bought the alcohol and the two walked back to the house together. Louise began drinking. She wasn't in the best mindset. She desperately wanted a friend to stay with her that night. So eventually her boyfriend Bradley went to the flat. He couldn't stay over, but he chatted with Louise, CJ and Shane for a little while. There was some discussions about Louise disliking the way Shane was speaking to her, saying he was actually flirting. It was relatively light-hearted and Bradley wasn't concerned when he decided to leave. He made plans to meet Louise the next day at around 3 PM. Hopefully the hangover wouldn't be too bad. Later that night, she messaged messaged some of her friends, saying that she was so drunk that she'd passed out. She also contacted a mental health helpline. Louise told the person that she was struggling with the lockdown, and that she was thinking of doing harm to herself. At some point after 3 a.m, she finally managed to fall asleep. The next day, Friday the 8th of May 2020, was VE Day in the UK. It was also in the middle of a nationwide lockdown. There wasn't much going on for anyone. When 3 p.m. came around, Bradley made his way over to CJ and Shane's house to meet Louise. When he arrived, he was greeted by CJ. CJ told him that Louise had gone out for the day, but had not yet returned. Bradley pulled out his mobile phone and made several attempts to contact Louise, but he had no luck. At around 4 p.m, Shane returned home. Bradley then asked him if he had seen Louise anywhere on his way. He had seen Louise only a few hours before. Shane explained that he had walked with Louise to a park before leaving her to go and visit his mother. He said that she had gone to see some of her friends, but that he hadn't heard or seen from her since. Bradley began to worry. Over the next few hours, he tried relentlessly to get in touch with her. However, she was unable to be contacted. Everyone close to her knew of her current mental state. They knew that she had been struggling with her mental health. They were growing worried about what she may have done. By that point, Louise was past her 6 p.m. curfew that was imposed by her aunt. At 6:32 p.m, CJ made a call to the emergency services to report Louise as missing. A search was soon underway to find her. As a 16-year-old girl, the police knew that the best way to find her would be through her mobile phone. Louise's phone records told a somber story. The last contact Louise had made was with a friend via Snapchat at around 12:50 p.m. The phone calls that Bradley made were picked up by multiple phone masts. These covered the Havant Thicket area. However, at around 4 p.m, her iPhone died and disconnected from the mobile phone network. They knew that her phone hadn't left the area, but it was also unusual for Louise to let the battery completely die. The police turned to those who had seen her last. Both Shane and CJ were questioned and asked where they had last seen Louise, but strangely, Shane changed the story that he had told CJ and Bradley. Instead of telling them he'd walked Louise to the park, he told the police that he walked to Tesco with Louise on the 8th of May, before she then left to see some friends. This was a small change, but one that the police picked up on. If one small detail can change, maybe the entire story will follow suit. The police also learned that Louise was thinking of moving out, and that CJ was keen to make her stay. They also discovered that Shane had been flirting and acting inappropriately towards Louise. These facts, along with Shane's story that didn't add up, made the police incredibly suspicious of the couple. As the search continued, police revisited the house several times. Each time, Shane Mays barely had a word to say to the police officers. He told them that he and Louise got on well. He also made another comment, strangely asking police if he could lock Louise in a bedroom if she returned. On another occasion, he told officers that he had searched a number of places for the teenager. He also claimed on one instance that after he had walked to Tesco with Louise, he then watched her walk away up near Billy Lawn Avenue. He walked police along the route he claimed to have walked. He and the police were all picked up on CCTV doing this. But on footage from the 8th of May, he was not seen on a CCTV with Louise walking this same route. This raised the question for the police. Why would he lie? What was he hiding? On the 15th of May 2020, the couple were arrested on suspicion of kidnapping. Louise's family and friends remained hopeful that she would return, but unfortunately, this wasn't the case. On the 21st of May 2020 at 11:45 a.m, a body was found by search teams about 40 meters off the track in the woods. The body had been torched. It was barely recognizable as a result of the injuries sustained. Injuries which included repeated heavy blows to the head. The body was confirmed to be Louise. Upon discovery, several sticks were found piled on top of Louise's body. This was said to have been done in an attempt to fuel a fire. A lighter was also found at the scene. In total, there were 19 separate injuries to Louise. A pathologist was unable to conclude which of them was fatal. This was no longer a missing person or even a kidnap. This was murder. The police theorised that Shane had lured Louise into the wooded area, and he had then attempted to force himself on her. But when this didn't work and Louise began to scream, he attacked her to stop her from making any further noise. He then defiled her body and started the fire. With no evidence linking CJ to the crime, she was released. Her hearing was held on July the 15th at Winchester Crown Court. Shane pleaded not guilty to the murder of Louise at his trial, which was set after his plea. However, on the first day of the trial on November the 17th, 2020, Shane admitted to killing her, but claimed it was an accident, and he pleaded guilty to manslaughter instead of murder. The prosecution team gave a detailed account of Louise's injuries. They also showed CCTV footage of Shane leaving the crime scene. DNA evidence belonging to Shane was found on a stick which he had inserted into Louise. On the stand, Shane claimed that Louise had asked him to go there with her for a conversation, and that they made their way into the wooded area where they began to argue. He alleges she picked up a big stick and hit him on the side. He said this hurt, so he grabbed it off of her and threw it on the floor. He then struck her in the face, repeatedly. Shane explains that she fell to the ground on the second punch, and that he then couldn't stop himself. When she was on the ground, punches continued to rain down. He couldn't say how many times he struck her, but he said he heard her bones crack. He says that when he walked away, he could still hear her moaning, claiming she was still alive. Shane denied that he intended to end Louise. He tried to push the idea that he'd simply lost control. When questioned as to why he created a hole in Louise's stomach, and then inserted a stick inside, and then set her on fire, he claimed that he did no such thing. His defense claimed that somebody else must have come along and done these things to the body. When asked why he lied to the police, Shane claimed that he had not intended to purposely lie about what had happened. He believed at the time that what he was saying was true, and that he simply didn't remember correctly. Shane has an IQ of 63. He's in the 0.1 bottom percentile for memory range. This mounted part of his defense. Just a quick note from me, his IQ is less than that of a dolphin, but on we go. Thankfully, the jury saw through this defense. The prosecution team highlighted the savagery of the attack and told the jury, even when he saw the blood and heard the cracks, he carried on. The shattering of her facial bones, the total separation of the jawbone from her facial skull. Shane Mays was found guilty of murder. He gave little reaction as he found out the news. In a victim statement, Louise's mother described her daughter as strong-willed, happy and smiley, who had the whole world to look forward to. When speaking to Shane in court, she said, "You killed her in such a traumatic way, and what you did afterwards is beyond words. You damaged her so badly I didn't even have a chance to say goodbye, to hold her hand, or even kiss her." Shane was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 25 years. In January of 2021, a solicitor referred the sentence to the Crown Court of Appeals. This solicitor considered the sentence to be far too low. Sadly, this appeal was rejected. Do you think the punishment fits the crime here? What do you think could be done to avoid something like this happening again in the future? Let me know down in the comments. Please do hit like if you appreciate what I'm doing here. Thank you to everyone in the Dark Case crew. You too can become a channel member for just 99 pence. A huge thank you to my patrons. Your support makes a massive difference. You too can support my work and be thanked in every video for just $5 per month. So thank you to Rachel David, Kathy Green, David David James, Addie Alexander, Karen Jones, Elle Palmieri, James Harrington, Shane Woodward, Faster River, Stacey Krogerus, Summer Chambers, Mona Corona, Cepheid Variable, Anthony Watson, Jason Coward, Guardian Paler, Jeremy Sebranek, Joy Burton, Dawn Kroc, Michelle Mims, Natalie Lundquist, Anita Ford, Christina Garzon, Annette Perkins, Austin Lounsbury, and Darlene. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.